everyone, and welcome out to a great afternoon, a beautiful Taos day, and it's great to live where we live. So thank you for being here, and welcome out to our regular meeting of April 28th. And for the record, it is 1:11. If you'll call roll, please.
Mayor Barrone?
Present.
Councilmember Han?
Here.
Councilmember Kunti? Here.
Okay. If Marietta, if you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you'll remain standing, I'd like to offer a moment of silence for the family of the Mossmans. Mrs. Mossman has passed away, and just a moment of silence also for our fellow counselor Peralta, that he might join us back here soon. Thank you. Councilors, next we have the approval of agenda. I would like to amend the agenda that item 9A be stricken from the agenda.
So move to approve, Mr. Mayor.
We have a motion to approve as amended.
I'll second that.
And we have a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Kunti?
Yes.
Councilmember Han?
Yes.
Okay. We'll go on to approval of minutes, March 24th, 2015, regular meeting minutes. Council?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second. And a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Han?
Yes.
Councilmember Kunti?
Yes.
B, April 14th, 2015, workshop meeting minutes. Council?
Move to approve.
We have a second to that.
I'll second.
And call for the vote.
Councilmember Kunti?
Yes.
Councilmember Han?
Yes.
So April 14th, 2015, regular meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second.
Second that.
And a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Kunti?
Yes.
Councilmember Han?
Yes.
Okay. We'll go on to presentations. Taos Center for the Arts. Taos Center for the Arts presentations on an annual report and performance report on leased Town of Taos government liquor license. And thank you guys for being here. And it's, I believe this is a yearly event that we get a report. And if you'll just your names for the record so that we have them on record.
Mayor Barrone and council members, as well as members of the audience, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. My name is Andy Johnson. I'm the current board president for the Taos Center for the Arts. And I'm joined by John Hamilton on my far left, who is vice president, and our executive director, Deborah McLean, who will also be involved in this presentation. Since we're all together, I thought what I would do very briefly is give a brief overview of the situation at the Taos Center for the Arts today, and then John and Deborah will follow up and address specific matters that pertain to our lease with the town.
Okay.
Our annual budget is approximately $415,000. It's interesting to note that ticket sales pay for about 34% of that budget. The rest of it is made up in grants, donations, business sponsors for specific events. We have 2 fundraising events each year. We also get rental income from the rental of the auditorium, mostly for not-for-profit organizations. The Stables Gallery, which we own, that is a rental facility. And then we have 2 commercial rentals. Renato's restaurant and the Andean Woolen Shop that border on Paseo. It's interesting to note that some of the income that we get from the Stables Gallery and these commercial rentals go to actually subsidize the operation of the auditorium. We also have memberships and that also contribute to the overall budget. In 2014, our fiscal year, we ended up with a positive cash flow of about $11,000. Like any business, we have periods of up and down for cash flow where we run very, very tight, and then other times where we have enough money to pay our bills. We do not have any reserve for capital expenditures or any operating reserve, so it's a very tight organization. Interesting also to note is that the theater is occupied over 300 days a year. This is for various events. We have, as an example, we have 75 rental events where organizations rent the theater from us, such as, I'll give a couple examples here, a few examples. Night of 1,000 Stars, which occurred last week, the Taos Youth Ballet, the Taos High School Play, the Taos Shorts Film Festival, the Taos School of Music, and music from Angel Fire. Those are to name a few of our renters. We have 32 of our own events that we operate. We have 11 performances of the Metropolitan Opera Live in high definition. We have the National Theatre of London, which is also a by satellite broadcast. The Manhattan Shorts Film Festival, the New Mexico Filmmaker Showcase. We had a Bollywood film night, Missoula Children's Theater, which I think many of you are familiar with, and our film series. This is to name a few of those events. Our film series, I might speak a word about that. We show about 53 movies, different movies each year. Each movie is shown 3 nights or 3 days, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. The average attendance for each movie is about 160 people. It's interesting that our film series is becoming more and more popular. It continues to grow and is a very important and critical part of our programming. We also have a TCA Film Society that was created by one of our board members and who continues to shepherd that. We now have about 177 members in that film society. They meet after each film and have a discussion session on one of the days that the movie is shown. Our Encore Gallery, which is actually the lobby area of the auditorium, and we worked closely with the town for the design of that those years ago. And we wanted that lobby area to be designed as a gallery, so it was built specifically to be able to accommodate art exhibitions. There's certain things you have to do to make it viable for an art exhibition place. So we have 6 exhibitions a year in that gallery. These are all curated by an art committee that we have, which is staffed by some of our board members and also our volunteers. And one of the reasons why we have an art committee is because we want to maintain a high level of quality in that space. We want those to be exemplary shows. And just as a matter of interest today, we're actually, as we speak, we are hanging the Art of Nonviolence show. And there'll be a reception for that on Friday. This is a show that where high school kids paint their vision of violence, maybe what has occurred to them, maybe what they have seen. And I can remember from last year's show, which as I recall was the first one, I mean, those comments by those kids are amazing and very poignant in many cases and really very worthwhile seeing. I would be remiss if I didn't mention our volunteers. If we didn't have our cadre of 150 volunteers, it would be almost impossible for us to operate. They've given us typically 1,500 hours each year of their services. We have a volunteer coordinator who is one of our board members who takes care of that scheduling of those volunteers. And we also have a board of directors, which is very loyal. We have 14 members. They're very loyal, hardworking, dedicated, and they provide a great deal of help to staff in running the organization. They don't run it, but they help staff with a number of issues, and they're very active. I'm hoping that at the conclusion of our presentations that you will understand that our theater, our auditorium, is being run with a great deal of dedication, professionalism, and in a business-like manner. I think we're obviously here to answer questions, but I think it would be better if we wait till the end of the other two presentations so we don't cover ground twice. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mayor Barrone and council members, thank you very much. Before I get into the lease, I want to say thank you to the town, because the facility, the Taos Community Auditorium, as you know, is a town-owned facility, and we lease it from the town, and we lease it based on services in lieu of rent. In our lease, it identifies that the yearly rent for the TCA would be approximately $52,000 a year, of which, because of the services we provide, we do not pay that rent in cash. So what I'd like to do is go through the services that we provide and the dollar amount attached to that to show that we're meeting our criteria as laid out in the lease for in lieu of, so we don't have to pay money. But in our programming, there are seven areas that we focus on in terms of the services in lieu of rent. The first one is art advocacy and programming. And the bottom line for the artistic fees for art performances that we bring in, and that includes our live performances. We bring in professional touring groups to the community that the community would not otherwise have the opportunity to see. We brought in Second City. We've had Guru of Chai. Missoula is one of them. Yastro's Scrap Arts Music was not too long ago. So those are the kinds of professional performances we bring in. And the artistic fees are the fees that we pay directly to those performers. Our film series, as Andy has mentioned, 53, and it sounds funny, but there's only 52 weeks in a year, but 1 week we did do a double showing, so that's why there were 53. And so in terms of the programming, those are the key programs that we gain, that we pay for to provide to the community. And along with that is also the art exhibitions. The art exhibitions, for the most part, are not a big dollar ticket item because most of the exhibitions, the expense is actually incurred by the artist for the framing of the works of art. Fundraising and grants to do all that we do in terms of arts advocacy comes up to about $18,600. Marketing and advertising, we spend a total of $21,000, which includes the contract marketing services for an individual who does all of our graphic design and design for brochures and our weekly newsletter. What else? Just anything we ask her to do, bless her heart. And then we have the website. There is a charge for our website upgrade, maintenance as we go along, and direct advertising costs for all of the events that we offer to the community. Our community coordination, most of our staff time is occupied with what happens at the Taos Community Auditorium. We do have programming in the stables, so some of our time is earmarked for that. We do have exhibitions at the Taos Inn, and some of our time is earmarked for that. But most of our time, employee time, is actually directly attributed to the work that we do at the Taos Community Auditorium. And you can see that comes up to close to $140,000. The staff, in terms of outreach, which is something that we feel strong about, although it's not a large ticket item, but it is fairly important to us in that we reach out, we do the opera, we reach out to the high school to involve the high school to come to the opera performances. We work with the high school students when we have live touring performers come in to do workshops. So the students actually get time with those professional performers when they come into town. We have the Art of Nonviolence, which is a reach out to the community working with Nonviolence Works to put on the exhibition, which will, as Andy said, open on Friday. It's going to be absolutely incredible. I've seen some of the work today in curating. And it is a don't miss. It's 4 to 6 at the TCA on Friday. We're all invited. There will also be some musicians there, and the students will talk to their work. Last year, I have to sort of sidetrack there, because last year it was absolutely incredible. I've never seen an exhibition where I've watched people stand in front of the art and spend time with the art and have tears in their eyes afterwards. It was very, very moving. And we have a Beautiful Midden Project, again, which is a community outreach exhibition that we will be doing in the Encore, and the Missoula Children's Theater, which is a free 5-day workshop in the summer. It's been coming to the TCA now for, this will be year 28. And it's a workshop where the students get professional theater instruction, and in the process of doing rehearsals, and then at the end they put on 2 performances, so they get to perform on live on a professional theater stage. And then we have our volunteers, and the volunteer hours that is upped from what Andy had, because we've added to our cadre of volunteers, and it's 1,700 hours. And based on the going national rate for volunteer hours, it comes out to almost $40,000 worth of time given to the TCA. And the children's theater, the Missoula Theater, as I said, was free. And then we have some general overhead costs that is very specific to the auditorium. So overall, the services, the value of the services that we provide to the community through our management of the Taos Community Auditorium is approximately $350,000. And we are required to provide approximately $80,000. So we're providing more than we are required to provide, so almost twice. So we feel we have honored the lease agreement with the town. And I also want to say that it's been a pleasure working with staff at the town for different events and for maintenance and repair with the town. It's been a nice cooperation. So thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. And I'm John Hamilton. And the difference between the $350 we spend and the $50 we're obligated to, if the town wants to consider a grant for part of that to make up the difference, we'd be pleased to have that.
We would consider it. Yeah.
And I wanted to report, as Councilman Peralta had asked, about our liquor sales in June of 2013. With the cooperation of the town, we got a liquor license through the state, a special one that cities are allowed to give, entered into an agreement with the town to use that license. And with that license, we've agreed to serve beer and wine only. We serve it in the Encore Gallery before some performances. And quite frankly, our sales have been much less than we had anticipated when we started into the process. And what we're finding is that when people come to events, a lot of times in the best of Taos fashion, they come right at the time it starts or a few minutes later, and they don't have time to sit and socialize. Or if they are there early, they want to go get their seat, and the alcohol and gaming rules will not allow us to have alcohol in the auditorium where children are present without. And so people can't take it into the auditorium, and so people just aren't buying much. When we do sell some is when we have special events, when we have intermissions, we get some sales. In your report, it's broken down into first a 14-month period where we had 7,700 of sales, and a second 8-month period, slightly less than 8, where we had 3,800 of sales. And you see the cost of goods, and so we have gross profit, but against that we have the cost of the license is $1,400 it's $1,400 a year to the state. We've had to have some purchases. We have to pay folks to serve it. So it turns out that we make a very modest amount of money off of the sales. It is a convenience for our customers and something I think will grow over time. But in terms of, we had hoped it might be something that would contribute to the running of the auditorium, and it hasn't done that for us.
Okay. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Council, we have any questions from Council?
Mr. Mayor, I just had a question. With all support of the arts, the $140,000 in lieu of rent, and I'm going to yield to Rick on this with regards to our anti-donation and how we've addressed certain issues, even with entities like High Altitude Athletics, which pay a market rate for the space. How does this differ in an offset in lieu of the services they provide in rent? But my understanding of the anti-donation is that it has to provide a tangible benefit to the greater whole of the community to fall outside the auspice of an anti-donation. How are we maneuvering around this? I know when we initially did this, the anti-donation wasn't such a push-button topic, but now it's become really at the forefront of almost every decision that governmental entities make when experiencing or exploring options with governmental property. Can you speak to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you, Councilman Mayor. We're not really maneuvering around it. It's something that immediately came to the attention of the town attorney and myself, and we're going to have to sit down after this presentation and have a discussion with the board at the TCA about how we do a restructure of that to be in compliance, given the guidelines we presented to council at the last meeting.
Thank you. And Floyd, is there two different contracts, one that for the space and one for the liquor license, or is that it's rolled together as one?
I don't believe so. There was a contract in 2000. Let's see, in the early 2000s. And the original contract was called for a 20-year lease with a renewal of PCA's option for an additional 20 years. That was amended, I believe, in 2006, maybe, or 2. Anyway, that 2003, I believe, and it was changed to an 8-year term. And there was another amendment after that, and so it's an 8-year term. The lease has actually expired, and I believe that there's just one. I don't think there are two different agreements with regard to what we say. So I think it was addressed in one of the amendments. And I'm sorry I don't have those with me here today, but I know that it has expired. I believe it expired in 2015.
No. John, did you have something?
There has been an additional amendment, and the current expiration is in December of 2016. And the liquor was on a separate agreement, and it was an agreement to lease the liquor license and how we would use it and the restrictions that were put on TCA.
Okay.
And we'd be glad to provide that.
And the reason I was asking that, if there's two different leases, make sure if we're going to look at them both for the anti-donation that they do it simultaneously so that we're not,
I don't believe we have the one that he's referring to in our records, so
we'll be glad to provide
a copy of that as well as the license.
Yeah, we can provide that.
Thank you. Councilor Cantu, some additional questions?
Well, I just was wondering if we might have a little workshop for council on the lease to just review it and get guidance from.
Yeah, I'm sure as soon as the attorney and Mr. Bellis come to some kind of, to bring something back. Maybe we can have a work study before this comes for a vote, if we can. Councillor Hahn, did you have anything?
No, I couldn't hear Councilwoman King.
Oh, you might turn yours on if you're...
Yeah, I ought to do that.
Mr. Moon, you have anything? Anything else from council? And I just want to thank you guys for all the work and the hours and the, public input that you guys continue to get, and people you work with and the different organizations. I know it's time consuming, and I just want to thank you guys for that. The state puts a number of these regulations on us, and it's unfortunate that, sometimes we have to well, it's not unfortunate. We have to deal with them. So, and Mr. Lopez and Mr. Bellis, and we just don't want to have to later on down the road find some kind of finding that then we can't be, our own. If we get grants, we can't administrate the grants. We have to find somebody else to do that because we had a finding. So we're very diligent in trying to get these taken care of. So again, thank you for all your work that you guys continue to do in the community and pull people together to move that place forward.
And
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for your time.
Mr. Mayor, I want to thank John, note that John has gotten just outstanding publicity for the Lilac Festival for the town of Taos. It's amazing, given the size of the event. You've probably got more coverage than our elections get sometimes.
Thank you. We've been very fortunate. Our website is just getting tons of hits. We're getting upwards. One day we had 7,000 page views. We're getting 500-600 page views a day, and so hopefully we'll keep our fingers crossed we get good attendance.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you.
So next we'll go on to Citizens Forum. Citizens wishing to speak shall have the opportunity to do so for 5 minutes. No action will be taken. I guess first on the Mr. Knief, I guess will be first, and then we'll go to Val Stoner after. Oh, Dr. O'Neill.
We're both coming up, Mayor, members of the council. Good morning.
Morning. Afternoon.
Afternoon. You're right. Good to see you all. Again, I'm Dr. Kate O'Neill, Director of UNM-Taos, and this is Mr. Bill Knief. He's got some materials to hand out to you. I'm here very briefly just to let you know, if you haven't heard already, the approval was given last week by State Board of Finance to renovate the buildings, Baton and Rio Grande Hall. And we want to thank the town for partnering with us on the purchase of those buildings, and we have the green light to move ahead with the renovations. So we make good partners in the downtown area. We wanted to give you a copy of our fall schedule, a copy of our strategic plan, and we will also have a copy of a poster with a summary of our strategic plan. We will have version 2.0 available in August with benchmarks for all of our 7 areas that we're focusing on. But the basic message is just thank you. We're really excited to proceed, and we just wanted to come and publicly thank the town, the mayor, and the council for your support and your collaboration. We couldn't do it without you, and we really appreciate it. So with that, thank you.
Dr. O'Neill, thank you. Thank all that were involved. This is a win-win-win for the whole community. It's a win for the downtown. It's something that, got started before we were in office, and we're completing it now. And I think it's a great opportunity for the community and creation of hopefully jobs and economic development, because we have that education component, and we can work with you. Hopefully we can partner on other projects that we can see fit to move through the community.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, members of the council.
Mr. Mayor, real quick.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Doctor, I want to thank you so much, too, for the leadership you've provided to this community with regards to UNM. For me, it's always been the key gateway avenue for higher education that means more stability within our community, and to see the university grow and anything that the city can do to help continue to foster that, I'm all behind and for. I have to put my job hat on and ask, when can we start looking at solar technology classes? We tout ourselves as the solar capital of the world, and it's such a growing industry with regards to everything we do on a daily basis. I'd love to see nothing more than Taos kind of be that hub. The closest area or university that sits close enough to us that offers any type of solar technology degree is in Colorado. And I think for us, when I look at it and a key gateway out for our kids or a way to keep them here is within that solar arena, solar field, even in the technology as we move forward with broadband. So anything I can do to stay active with UNM and really engage in the process, I'm all for. I'd love to hear from our youth counselor how he feels. I guess the university, for me, I've been out of the game a little while, and my boy just went off to college. But for me, it's really seeing the opportunity that lies here within. I'd love nothing more than to keep our kids home, but at the same time give them the opportunity to earn and make a good living that they can make elsewhere. Because my fear is they leave and they're never going to come back. And I've had the fortunate opportunity to come back and contribute back to this community that's given me so much. So I'd love nothing more than to see our youth be able to do the same. And like I said, anything I can do as a city councilor, even as just a resident in this community, continue to help UNM-Taos grow, I'm all for. So thank you for the leadership.
I don't know if this is on or not.
Thank you.
Hello? Okay. Thank you, Council Member. So I can speak on behalf of a lot of the high school students when I say that the most appealing portion of potential attendance to UNM or UNM-Taos is the dual credit programs that are offered at the high school in a number of different classes and industries. Specifically in the vocational building, students can get a lot of early college credit in welding or woodwork, for example, and that carries over very well. I have a number of friends who chose to go to UNM because they already had over a year worth of credit because of the dual credit specific programs. So if we do expand those solar technology classes or those types of technology classes, doing it in a dual credit fashion at the high school that allows for that easy transfer over to the UNM after graduation and for the early accumulation of credit is very appealing for a lot of students. So in moving in that direction, I can tell you that's the most appealing portion for high school students, is that they gain a lot of credit early, they can graduate early from UNM, and they can do it for obviously very cheap. So that integration of the programs is something that's already very successful.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moon. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you all. All right.
We'll go to Belson, Ms. Stoner.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I would like to say thank you so much for allowing me to come here today to tell you the exciting news that in last year you actually agreed that we could put this wonderful obsidian in the plaza. It was eventually decided that it should go up on top of the gazebo, and that is what's happening. On Monday, Julie and Gilbert came to the plaza and we discussed putting it up. It's all been decided, it's all been measured, and so all being well, on Thursday morning at 9:15 we're going to be putting this wonderful obsidian up into the plaza. And I just want to remind you what it's all about basically. It's a guardian spirit which will protect the town. It creates unity and therefore love and light. It dispels negativity and helps let go of the past, helps the future to see the future with clarity, and increases creativity, joy in this time of transition. And lastly, it opens new horizons, which I think is incredibly exciting. And I'm sure you all know that in Paris, when they had the shooting, everybody started to talk about unity. It is the buzzword of the world today. And so I am really excited that you gave my son and I permission to donate this obsidian last year before everybody else had it as a buzzword. And so I believe that you are the vanguard. You have already said, we all know that your solar program, you're the city of the world with the solar program. I want everybody to know that you are the leaders, that here in Taos, this beautiful town which I truly love, are the leaders of creating unity. And so on a Sunday at 3:30, I would like to invite everybody to come to the plaza at 3:30, and we're going to have a blessing and a celebration and welcome this beautiful crystal, which will create so much wonderful things in this town. And so please come along. We are hoping to have some music. We're hoping to have some singing. I only came back to Taos on Sunday, so I haven't had much time to get everything organised, but I strongly believe that everything is going to come together. And to have all your wonderful energy in the plaza on Sunday at 3:30 would be fantastic. So I thank you all. Much, much gratitude for what you have allowed us to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Council?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Atur?
Mayor Barrone, council members, thank you for having this opportunity so that I have a voice today to be able to share with you a situation that is affecting my business.
Excuse me, ma'am, can you please state your name for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Atira Montoya. My full name is Helen Atira Montoya, and I go by Atira. I am the owner of Historic Taos Trolley Tours, and I'm sure that every spring you've seen the trolley come up, and we know that it's a brand new day and that the new season is upon us. I was born and raised in northern New Mexico, and in 1981 I started the Taos Trolley because I wanted to share my passion and my love for Taos. Over the years, I have employed many different people. People have come from all walks of life, professional people, previously in other areas of expertise, business owners, accountants, people that wanted to have another job that they could look forward to, a fun job for the summer. Mr. Leo Martinez will be with me for his 16th year. I started negotiating my contract in February, and I was told by Mayor Barrone, Mr. Bellis, and the town attorney, and Chief Weaver of the police department, that I was able to operate out of the Taos Visitor Center and that I would have access to the Taos Plaza during farmers market. And as you know, any business can thrive if you have the right location. In business, it's always about location, location, location. I have been at the Visitor Center since my inception, and on Friday afternoon, this past Friday, the 25th, I received a call from the attorney's office at the town telling me that I would no longer be able to be at the Visitor Center. I have a signed contract with the town, signed by Mr. Bellis and Mr. Lopez, and I have not signed the contract because there was a typo that left out my LLC and my full name. And once that was corrected, I would have signed the contract. I asked repeatedly if it was ready for me to sign, and I have never received the corrected version. I am asking the council members today to help me resolve this issue so that I can continue to be in business out of the visitor center My company provides a service that no one else is offering, and it is a logical place for visitors who come to Taos to board the trolley. In conclusion, the Taos Trolley Tours provides an opportunity to visitors to learn more about our history and our culture of our area and our only industry in Taos called tourism.
Mr. Lopez, did you want to address that? I don't know if...
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I do not believe that I called Ms. Montoya. Ms. Montoya has called the administration many times over the last several weeks, and she was referred to me on Friday. I didn't call her. She called me and asked again for her contract, and I told her that it was my understanding that the administration stated that they were not going to issue a contract, and I attempted to explain to her the reasons that, as I understood it, that they would not. And she told me that she was going to address the issue with the mayor. So that's all the light that I can shed on this issue.
Okay. And the understanding that I had is we had given direction to have this contract drawn up, and then there became a problem with the anti-donation.
That's correct. It was my understanding was going to be addressed in a similar fashion as the other matters concerned. But the issue is, basically, is that you're leasing what the administration has done previously is lease private space, space of a governmental entity, the town of Taos, to a private enterprise. Similar, as I told Ms. Montoya, is if we were to lease a portion of the Taos Visitor Center to Greyhound bus line, something like that. And there has been an issue of what there are two issues. One is the anti-donation clause, and the other issue is the procurement. And so there were discussions as to whether or not the town was going to procure, if they were interested in doing it, to procure space at the visitor center to some transportation facility. And it was my understanding, based on my discussions with you and the town manager, that you weren't interested in putting out an RFP for that purpose. And so that's what I advised Ms. Montoya. The other question, of course, is that it's my understanding that the space that she's been quote renting from at the Taos Visitor Center, she hasn't paid for, and that's a violation of anti-donation. So we'd have to get an appraisal of what exact amount would be the fair market value of this space for her rental. It would be a monthly rental for whatever period she's renting it. And then I believe that there's a likelihood that the lease would have to be approved by Department of Finance and Administration, like all other leases.
So is there a way we can get this worked out?
I think my understanding is the only way is if we have the appraisal that I just referred to, and that she paid the fair market value, and also that the town, if it's interested, would have to put out a request for proposals and allow everybody, all private enterprises, the same opportunity to bid on the bid on the chance to do the same thing that Ms. Montoya was.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman?
I see a consideration, which is a dollar amount for lease. Where was that calculated from, I guess, number one? Number two, could this not operate as a sole source if it was contracted through the city? Because I don't see any of the trolleys running around town. So I don't see any of the trolley companies running around town. So I guess, people aren't going to take a tour in the back of a van. They could, but it is designated as a trolley tour. So I see a lease amount, which I think gets us around the anti-donation. I guess the only question I have as a counselor is how was that calculated?
I have no idea, and as I told Ms. Montoya, I am not the one that made the decision regarding this. I told her that it's my belief that there's only one trolley company in town, and I think that certainly if it's published, notice is published for 30 days, the town is interested in going forth with that, but it's considered sole source, assuming that, there's documentation that there's no other competitor.
Mr. Mayor, I would ask that we get that going, and I'm sure Ms. Montoya, you need to get up and operating as soon as possible as the weather gets nicer.
Actually, I'm scheduled to start on May 1st, and I do want to clarify one thing. I actually have paid the town every cent that I owe them, and I don't know where you're getting your information, Mr. Lopez, that I didn't pay my bills, because I'm very professional about paying my bills. I've run this business for 27 years, and I have no debt on that trolley. So I don't know where that's coming from, but at any rate, I can prove, if I need to prove those financial records, I have them available. And I'm just looking forward to starting our 27th season. I want to keep my employees employed. I went through a situation where one of my employees had to leave after 3 years of being the tour guide. He just recently had to move to Denver for family reasons. And we just finished hiring a new tour guide on Saturday. And he's had a commercial driver's license for 27 years. He's a historian. His father is actually an author and written 3 books on Taos. So I'm super excited about getting this trolley back on the road again. And as far as the $100 that was asked for me to pay that amount, I was paying that amount because that was what everyone else in the visitors center is paying. I don't know currently who's in there, but I know at one time there was a balloon company in there. There was a river rafting company in there at one time, and this is, over the years. And also there was the Jeep tours out of Red River that were all in that visitor center. So there's a lot of also art in the visitor center, and I'm sure those are all individual people as well that are having to pay. I don't know what they pay, but I do know that's where the $100 came from.
How big of a spot is it?
It's that big. It's just a desk size. It's about maybe an 8x8. I'm right behind the back door as you walk into the visitor center, so it's a very small space.
Steve, I can get Steve to shed some. Steve, what are some of the other vendors paying? Is this right in line with that, or how?
Mr. Mayor, council members, so far I know that the visitor center is now under the tourism and marketing director, but from last year I recall that the only other commercial vendor was Esky's Balloon Company, and they put up a poster. They don't have an actual presence in the center. Other occupants of the visitor center are the Chamber of Commerce, the Taos County Chamber of Commerce, and the U.S. Forestry Service. And they pay market rate. Well, the Chamber of Commerce pays in-kind service fee for market rate of the space. The Forestry Service pays a rent as a tenant. And to my knowledge, the artists that sell there pay a 30% commission on their art. They're licensed through the town. That's a new requirement. They have license and some other documentation that's required of them. They pay 30%. To my knowledge, that is all the only people that are in there other than the visitor center staff.
Yeah, and I'll mention, Mr. Mayor, Council, on the art, that's a little different because the audit committee brought that up last year as a problem, and actually that was the first indication of a anti-donation problem. So in effect, the town visitor center is selling the art and then paying, collecting a commission for that, and then paying the artists, so that in that way you don't have to purchase the art and have an inventory of art. You don't have to have an inventory of art up front, and you can have a larger collection. So that's a little different arrangement. The difficulty on this lease is that it's not just for the little 2-foot by 4-foot space, is that, and this came up last year and we tried to accommodate it, is that the vendor believes that she needs full access to the parking lot and the building and to all the tourists that are there. So while there's a desk there, in fact, the business uses the coffee, the bathrooms, the copier, the phones, and not the phone. And actually is almost, it has full use of the parking lot for the vehicle, a sign out front, and so it really becomes hard to establish what the market value for that is. And given the recent, we did actually, and she does have a copy that we signed the contract, but that was we subsequently came up with this interpretation of the anti-donation, which has affected everything. Last Saturday, 2 Saturdays ago, in fact, I had to meet with the Fiestas Committee and explain to them that we would have to, for them and the farmers market, procure their services as a program manager, which is in the paper last week and this week, and in addition, be a co-sponsor of those events. And they were very understanding of that, and explained that won't really change the functioning of the program. It's just, unfortunately, we have this really convoluted set of laws now that we have to follow on anything that has public value attached to it. And I don't think this was a closed case. It was my understanding after Mr. Lopez spoke with the potential leasee that she wanted to meet with the mayor and myself, and we indicated at that time that we would try to develop alternatives to approach you with as to how we could go about doing this, but it was better to explain it face to face, because some of them might not work for you and some of them might be better for you.
On Monday, when I talked to Mr. Lopez, I asked him for the reason, and he was very clear to me that, that it was a stopped. There was no more negotiation, was the way it looked to me. And because I am starting on May 1st, I don't have time to waste. I only have a small window of opportunity to make the trolley tour successful. That's 6 months. And it starts May 1st, and I had left several messages for you, Mr. Bellis, to try to, figure out where we were going next. But I just felt like I needed to be here today. And, I'm not trying here to offend anyone, but I really feel that it's a pressing issue for my company. I'm not a huge company. I only have 3 of us. And so I need the help right now. That's what I'm asking for you guys to help me so that we don't lose. The trolley is a community-minded entity. We provide a service that normally a lot of towns would probably cover, as we've discussed before. And so I think I've done a good job in the past 27 years of employing good professional people to do the tours. And if you ask the tourists, I get feedback at my store every day. Thank you, Atira, for telling me about the tour. A lot of times I don't tell them I own the tour company. I just, promote it from the store. And they're just loving it. So we're talking about something that is a benefit to this community. And there's been many years that I haven't made a great profit on it. So it's not like I'm rolling in the dough. I'm doing a service for this community as well.
Mr. Bellis, Mr. Lopez, can we set an appointment with Atira, and let's see if there's a way that we can move this contract forward?
Mr. Mayor, it's my understanding that she has an appointment with you. I spoke with Kathy this morning. She told me there is an appointment scheduled with her and you. I believe it's this week. With respect to Ms. Montoya, I did not tell her there's no further negotiation. My recollection of our conversation is that I told her that I had absolutely no role at all in the decision regarding this process, and that I suggested that she speak with you and Mr. Bellis concerning that. It's my understanding immediately after that she made an appointment with you, and that it's already scheduled for this week.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I could ask one.
Councilor Gonzalez, and then, or
go ahead.
If you're going to yield to.
You've been in business for 27 years. This is a small town. We all know you are a sole source. And
Yes.
what I'm really miffed with right now in looking at this contract is it has Mr. Bellis's and Mr. Lopez's signature dated as of the 9th of this month. That's 2 weeks ago. The anti-donation clause came up when? Did it come up as an issue then? I need to be more clear on that.
Are you asking me?
I guess whoever can answer.
So I actually prepared 3 versions of this contract. It was my understanding that there's been some issues with regard to the activities of the trolley company at the visitor center over the last at least couple of years. And the contract was modified last year because of that. And then I did actually 2 different versions in addition to the amendments that were made last year. And the director of the facilities wasn't comfortable with the changes that were made, and so there were 3 different versions that were prepared. During that process, the issue, the discussion with the DFA people that you're familiar with occurred, and that became another issue that I don't think anybody's ever actually considered previous to that. So it was all kind of a simultaneous thing.
Okay, well, it's still dated on the 9th. It looks like you were in agreement to go ahead and sign this, and with the typos being corrected, and I just feel like we need to get out of her way and let her do her business. She has been in business 27 years, and she is a sole source.
Well, Councilman, I want to mention that the sole source wouldn't solve the problem because the state law requires that if we sole source, we have to advertise it for 30 days before we can enter into a contract. And she needs to begin in May 1st. So we have to find a more creative solution to this.
Is there somebody on staff who's looking at all the leases and contracts ahead of time so that things like this don't happen to block everybody?
Every one of them, and yes, and everyone's in a rush. We've had to rush out RFPs and scopes of services, as I indicated earlier, for the farmers market, for which starts in 2 weeks, Fiestas, which is just around the corner, Mother's Day, and had to create a process for our other events, the Lilac Festival, and Solar Fest. And obviously Mother's Day is only a week away, and we did not create this determination, and it's just as frustrating for staff as it is for council, but now that we know it, and DFA knows that we know it, we can't ignore it.
Yeah, well, I'm curious why you even signed it on the 9th then. So.
Well, I can answer that, Councilwoman, because it changed from a more restrictive lease to just that space to needing full access to the entire premises. And then that seemed like a minor change, but in retrospect, after signing that and then re-examining other changes that were wanted, we realized that it really was a lease for full access of the parking lot and the building, and that you couldn't do that and try to get away and say it was $100, because we did then, in fact, do create the Los Cruces example of grossly underestimating for a for-profit business lending the entire premises of the tourism center, which is paid for out of the LTAB money, which is very tightly regulated by state statute for tourism purposes.
And if I might add something further, I'm not sure that, I didn't know that this was coming up today. I didn't know that Ms. Montoya was going to be here today, and so I don't have the 3 versions that I was just discussing in front of me. But my recollection was, and the process started so long ago that I'm not sure my recollection is clear, is that we made some changes that were asked for by the facilities department. And those weren't the changes that Ms. Montoya was requesting when she first came in and asked that the lease be changed to suit her. And I believe my recollection was that we included facilities modifications, and that she wasn't satisfied with that. She can correct me if I'm wrong, but that she did not like that, and then she came back and she wanted the changes that she was requesting be placed in the license or lease, or I think it's in her case it's called a lease. And so that's why I prepared the 3 different versions and then said somebody has to make a decision. I don't make those decisions. I just draft the leases based on what I'm told to do. So I think that's where it kind of came to a stalemate, because Ms. Montoya didn't agree with the changes, modifications that the town was insisting on, and the town wasn't agreeing with what she wanted to do, and that's where things kind of came to a standstill. And then the anti-donation procurement issues arose because of our conversation with the DFA day 2 or 3 weeks ago. And then my conversation with her was just to explain what those things meant, anti-donation and procurement. And then she told me she understood it, and then she said she would speak with it there.
Councilman Gonzalez.
So my understanding is it's an 8x8 space. Is that all you're leasing? Is that?
That's what let me just back up a little bit and explain to you what actually has happened. There is a previous lease from last year. I had a situation where I sent in one of my salespeople 3 years ago, I think it was, or maybe even 4 years ago. And one of the visitor center staff people witnessed her asking one individual to take the tour more than once. From that one situation, I have been confined to the space that I've been renting, whatever that space was. At one point, if you come into the visitor center from the front end, there was a room that's called the Taos Pueblo room to the right. I was required to stay in that room and not come out to talk to anyone regarding the tour. Many times people came in, and this is what I explained to you during the election, Mr. Mayor, that we were sitting there, my employees, twiddling their thumbs, trying to drum up a tour, and they couldn't get anyone because they were not allowed to walk out of that room and talk to anyone about the tour.
I don't understand that, because the visitor center is supposed to be a place that harbors business, offers services to visitors.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why you would be tight-lipped to a room.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
If you were soliciting something else, but you operate a business out of that location.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, Steve, my understanding is it's an 8x8 space. I don't know what everybody else pays, but I know market rate on a commercial lease space is about $1.25, and that's even on the high side right now, given our economic times. Could we not calculate that it's 64 square feet at $1.25. That's her $100 puts her well over the lease amount space if we're generating on a lease. Why couldn't we just follow that formula and just be done with this and put this thing to bed with regards to anti-donation? She's paying a lease space. How she operates her business is up to her. Anytime I owned a rental property or commercial property, I couldn't tell my tenants who they could and couldn't sell to. So, I'm just confused, and I'm kind of really concerned with how things are operated as a whole, if that's the case. If you can't promote your business in an establishment that you operate out of, then how are you supposed to survive and succeed? So unless I'm missing something here that government doesn't allow you to promote business, I'm really, really appalled that happened. So please clarify.
I will. So based on reports from the staff at the visitor center last year, the lease was changed. The issues were, and it was more than just one person. The idea of the visitor center is to welcome and greet people who come to Taos for whatever reason they want to be here, whether it's to go to the Pueblo or to go to the Plaza or go to the art galleries. And so that's the primary mission of that location. It's paid for by the lodger's tax, as I understand it.
Real quick, Steve, I'm going to stop you for 1 second. Renee, being that this is under public comment, should we be discussing as an issue? And I don't want to, but if we could actually advertise this as a special meeting agenda item, put it on there, and make a decision with regards to how the lease is being operated. Mr. Mayor, it just occurred to me that if we're discussing it and it comes before the council for approval, that we've heard testimony prior to.
I agree with you, Mayor, council members. This item wasn't on the agenda, and you've spent probably close to a half hour discussing it at this point. And I believe if you want to discuss it further, you should add it to the agenda or for the next meeting or a special meeting.
It would have to be a special meeting. May 1st is Saturday.
Right.
And we're Tuesday,
so
it'd be Friday.
Have a special meeting would be on Friday. We need 72-hour notice for a special meeting.
Yeah, and I'm not going to be here Friday.
So Rick, Floyd, put something together, see what we can work out, see if we can't put this issue to bed. Again, don't want to violate any anti-donation or procurement issues, and let's see if we can't get this done. If not, let's have a special meeting. Get it done. Okay?
Mr. Mayor, with regards to that, is it possible, is May 1st going to kill you if that doesn't happen? If we set a meeting for next week, I want to give you some time to be able to work through the issues with Mr. Bellis and our attorney.
Yes.
And if there's not a resolve or a satisfactory resolve on your behalf, I'm happy to hear it. But I just think to push this to force you to engage with them this afternoon, and if it doesn't work out, for us to set a meeting on Friday. Councilor Cantu won't be here, and I'm not sure what my weekend looks like, but I'd definitely entertain for having some type of a special meeting next week. But I'd rather see staff handle this, as opposed to us, engaging in a public.
Right. Mm-hmm. And like I had brought up, the big thing for me is to be able to talk to the people. I have professional people that work for me. They're not going to be pressuring the people, and they are not going to be rude, because you know what? They're going to have them on the tour for 3 hours. They want to please those people, and customer service is our number one priority. So if it's more convenient for you, I can wait until next week. If we can get, I know I already have people that are paid to come in and take the tour on Monday. So if we could get this resolved through staff or whatever means it takes to get us going, I'm all for it. Okay. So I'm flexible.
Mr. Manager, can you commit to seeing that through this week?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I think we're already scheduled for Thursday. Is it?
Actually, it's not till the 6th of May 6th was the earliest that we could all get together, that you guys could get together and me.
Kathy, call you and we'll get something together for Thursday.
Thursday, this Thursday? Okay, fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Steve.
much.
No problem.
Thank you, Atira.
Steve,
Thank
if you have an opportunity, would you talk to Councilman Gonzalez?
I'd be happy to, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Go ahead, whomever.
Hi.
Good afternoon.
Hi, how are you?
You might have to pull the mic closer to you so that we can hear you. And
can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm Emily Ruffin. I'm the goldsmith who's just across the way here. If you walk through here and go over to the Bent Street shops, you walk right through the building between me and the gallery next door. And I feel actually a little silly to be here, but I've been going around in circles and I apologize that I don't have the other merchants here with me, but I just found out that there was a meeting today and kind of came over impromptu. I thank Ms. Cantu for coming over to me and saying hello and remembering me as the person who had talked to her probably 2 years ago about this issue that I'm going to bring up. So I'm a little bit frustrated, and I just would like a little direction. The situation that we have in front of where my business is, if you're familiar with the walkway that comes across from the Bent Street shops over to Maya Cabot's building where I rent, is a courtyard that sits back with a fountain in it and the old apple tree on one side and the rest of the Bent Street shops. We have a lot of traffic that comes from the plaza, and it goes both ways down Bent Street. There's no parking in either. There's a postal area right across the street in front of the Moby Dickens bookstore, and there's a loading zone on the north side of the street, the northwest side of the street. There is one parking space that is in that open common area between the courtyard of my building where people are passing through from here going over to the plaza. And for the traffic coming down Bent Street, there's a big open area. It's almost like a plaza area because of the convergence of the Bent Street stores with the courtyard in front of the building where I rent. And there's one parking space. There's one meter that sits there. And because of all the open space out in front of it, we have a constant problem all summer long with people coming with huge RVs, buses, like enormous commercial vehicles. And they're very proud of themselves because they get there before 7 o'clock in the morning, park with their dogs, their kitchen is in there, and they're basically setting up a household there in something that's like a story and a half tall half the time in front of the businesses. We've done traffic counts of people when we have an RV parked out in front of us and when we don't. The space, the one parking space is there is abnormally long, but because of all the loading zone in front of it, they can back their camper in there, and they're conveniently centrally located in the middle of a shopping district. They've got their motorhome, and there are no signs that say you can't park RVs. I've had trouble finding out what the laws are here. I'm a little frustrated because I call the town and I get sent to the planning department. The planning department sends me to the public works department. I get sent to the police department, and I get sent to code enforcement, and it just goes in circles. And some of the people don't answer calls. I've tried again this week. We had somebody parked out there for hours, and we have enough trouble with business with the economy the way it is now. It's really hard to sit and watch numbers and numbers of people that don't come across the street either direction because they're blocked by a huge commercial vehicle that's sitting out in the street. And I've wondered, I've approached a number of people over a period of years. I've talked to the other merchants there. They all are in agreement that we would like either, the first choice would be to have that one parking meter removed. And just because it's right in a pedestrian walkway anyway. People coming from this side going over to the plaza have to walk past a commercial vehicle, and they're in the street by the time, a one-way street, by the time it's potentially dangerous there, although there's not traffic moving very fast. If the town absolutely needs the revenue from that one parking meter, could that parking meter, at least, could the area be striped to say compact cars only? Could there be a sign put on Bent Street that says no commercial vehicles, no RV parking? In my discussions with, I've called Mr. Garcia, Mr. Willie Garcia, who's a street supervisor. I did talk to Emilio Garcia, who told me to call Mr. Willie Garcia, but I haven't heard back from Mr. Garcia. But I've heard from different people that there are problems with RVs that pull into the parking spaces on the plaza with their rear ends sticking out and blocking traffic, and they're constantly having to move them there. So it's not just a problem on Bent Street, but it's a particular problem for my business, the business next door to me, the couple of businesses across the street, and the little businesses that are on the corner going down towards the Taos Inn. When people are coming over from the plaza, they can't even see across the street that there's anything there, and we've just done counts where we won't have any business for 2 or 3 hours at a time in the middle of the summer if they're coming from the opposite side of the street, because they can't see there's anything over there, and they take a right and go on down towards the Taos Inn. It's unsightly, it's unprofessional looking in the middle of a beautiful shopping area like we have, and that we all work so hard to maintain. And I just wonder if there could be put either a beautiful bike rack out there, and it could be bicycle parking, if it could be signed off that says motorcycles and bicycles only. We're talking about one parking meter. Or if it could just be striped on the street and a little sign put on that one parking meter that says compact only.
There sounds like there could be a number of solutions to this. I would recommend that you get your number and your name to Mr. Bellis,
okay,
and Mr. Bellis can sit down with you and see if there's some kind of solution that can be brought to. If it needs action by the board, then it would be put on one of our meetings. If there's something that we can take care of through staff, I'm sure we have somebody from the police department and safety that can address this too. So yes, thank you
so much. I apologize again for taking your time over something.
It's not taking our time. Thank you.
Menial is one parking meter, but I didn't know where to go, and I figured maybe I could find out here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes, ma'am. We can share. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Melanie Redman, and I'd like to organize a community and youth event in this next couple weeks here where we help pull the thistles out of town spaces, mainly behind McDonald's and Ace Hardware Store is the biggest, but I've also seen on the plaza. Right now the thistles are soft. They haven't bloomed yet. So we could potentially make a fun event thing, not this weekend, but next weekend, so it can actually go into the newspaper. So we just wrote up a quick little funny pull a thistle day kicks off pull a thistle week. And a way that maybe the Taos Artists Organization can help continuing encouraging people to pull invasive species and weeds so that we don't have to waste money and time and lose what vegetation we have that we really like. So if there's any protocol that I should go about, or making sure that I don't have people just leaving weeds all over the plaza once they pull them, is why I'm here and bringing it forth. If you have any suggestions or anything.
Mr. Bellis?
Thoughts?
Is it something that I know we probably can pick up the bags, and go ahead.
Whatever council wishes.
Kudos. Those are so horrible. I know they contaminate the bales of hay and get in the horse's throat, and I think thistle is a nightmare.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you noticed and that you even want to take a stand on getting rid of the thistle, because I've thought that for so long. And
I'm not the only one, and so if the youth can get involved, and this weekend I'm going to be at the Taos High School where they're doing the recycling and trash pickup 5K run at Vista Grande, so I can talk to them about getting them involved as well.
Mhm.
And it'd be fun to have like an ice cream day or whatever, but whatever we want to do.
I think that's a wonderful idea. Oh, I don't have a card. But, yep, you can count me in.
Okay.
And give us a call. I would love to participate.
Awesome. Okay.
See what we can do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else under public? Steve?
Stevens Hall, Buenos Dias. At the last council meeting, the manner and procedures followed by which plaza events, and in particular musical events, are considered and approved was discussed at length. The council discussion included a former Department of Finance and Administration employee, Robert Apodaca. In response to questions and inquiries from the town, the Department of Finance and Administration has, I believe, weighed in to the effect that the town is and has been in compliance with procurement policy and requirements. That is, I believe, the position town administration has maintained ever since Councilor Gonzalez raised his procurement concerns some months ago. It is to be hoped the matter may now soon draw to a close. It would have been a gross mistake on the part of the council to dismiss the town manager based on an erroneous understanding of state procurement policy as voiced by Councilor Gonzalez. Last summer, it was reported in the Taos News that Councilor Gonzalez had responded to a reporter's question as to whether the dismissal of Mr. Bellis would be considered at a council meeting, that no, it would not be considered inasmuch as Councilor can too, and I believe these were your words in response to the reporter's question. Councilor Gonzalez had, quote, backed down, end quote. I find the explicitly understood conversation between Councilors Gonzalez and Cantu at least as troubling as the cloudy question of procurement. At a meeting in January, Councilor Gonzalez, you represented that you were voicing the concerns of your constituents. I believe the council is elected at large, and as such, all residents and the views of all residents are your constituents, Councilor Gonzalez. Councilor Cantu, I read your open letter of concerns regarding town administration available in the Taos News this past January. I read your letter several times and never truly understood the basis or focus of your concerns. I could not discern a clear enumeration, a bill of policy violations, so to speak. Though I never heard Councilor Peralta express any reason, specific or otherwise, for considering the dismissal of the town manager, it was clear from his demeanor and from his repeated, quote, call for the vote, end quote, at the January meeting that he was prepared to dismiss the town manager. Whatever my disagreements with Mr. Bellis, I doubt seriously I could ever find reason for dismissing him by reason of his lack of regard for law. In that respect, I believe you're barking up the wrong tree. If the council finds a town manager out of step with your directions and doesn't correct course when directed to do so, it is, of course, your prerogative to dismiss the town manager, but be clear and convincing when doing so. At a council meeting last 28 October during the Citizens Forum, Ken Manning voiced his concern that, quote, Dollar General, which was built on the south side of town, is in conflict with the town code. He believes the town's, I'm quoting from the minutes, he believes the town's architectural standards should be revisited. The council agreed that the zoning regulations need to be evaluated to determine how Dollar General was approved. End quote. You echoed Mr. Manning's concerns, Councilor Gonzalez, and said you would be very interested in the outcome. I wonder if anyone has ever followed up on those concerns. Did Dollar General follow the requirements of the town with respect to building that structure? And if not, why not? And how did the building come to be? So now that procurement is out of the way, maybe you could look at the Dollar General, Mr. Councilor Gonzalez. Councilor Cantu, Cesar Chavez is on your mind, and I agree that there should be an occasion for celebrating the life of Cesar Chavez. Councilor Han's son teaches a poetry, spoken word writing class at the high school, and maybe the student counselor could put you in contact with his class. Maybe that class would be interested in poetry, reading, writing poetry, honoring the life of Cesar Chavez. the Harwood and the Millicent Rogers offer outreach programs in the summer for students. Maybe somehow those students could be involved in learning something about the life of Cesar and about drawing, representing their views of Mr. Chavez. Effie Romero at the Talpa Community Center might be interested in doing something along those lines. I'm sure that children are there all summer long. Olivia Romo wrote a poem called the Sequia poem. She read it at the New Mexico Sequia Association Congreso last November. It's a wonderful poem. In reading about her, I believe that she was a student of the Poet Laureate, the New Mexico Poet Laureate. Maybe the Poet Laureate would be interested in coming up and talking, discussing, reading poetry. I think it should be a plaza event to celebrate the life and work of Cesar Chavez on behalf of labor and labor unions and his efforts. So those are just some thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
It's in the works, Stephen.
Mr. Mayor, can I just address Stephen?
Yes.
Yes, the general dollar was looked at, okay, and for the codes that were in effect at the time, it was compliant. However, I think there's a general dissatisfaction that there's this sudden transition outside of the historic district. So there have been at least 2 meetings, actually 3, but 2 deliberately scheduled to talk about design standards between the Historic Commission and Planning Commission. As a result of that, the Mondo Italiano restaurant, which was going to be very chrome and steel, is now going to be an adobe-like structure, which I think will be more consistent with the architecture one would expect at Taos. The McDonald's is undergoing a redesign, which is right on the edge of the historic district, and the Hampton Inn is going to be putting portals and vigas to, again, fit more into the area. And there's a number of new structures proposed, including I guess we can't say because the applications aren't in, that process of working with the design workshop have been very positive. Getting physical changes and community consensus long-term on the design standards is going to be a long-term process, and our planning director is working on that. But in the interim, I think we have positively affected the architecture of the town.
Thank you. Anybody else on Citizens Forum? Not, we'll go ahead and move on to item 9B, 2014 New Mexico State General Obligation Bond Grant. Ms. Shirley?
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. This is something that was voted on in November of 2014. We normally don't get this funded this early in the process, but this year it has already come to my desk for signatures from the council accepting the GO bond, the 2014. With the stipulation that I expend 5% of it before September 2015. At that point, then I can suspend the expenditures until between 2016 and 2018. These GO bonds come every 2 years, and it usually takes 2 years before I can expend. For instance, I am currently expending the 2012 bond. And so I am trying to follow the state library's instructions, and so I am asking for your consideration and approval to accept the 2014 bond early and allow me to expend 5% between now and September 2015. Any questions?
Council?
Move for approval, Mr. Mayor.
Second. Second discussion, if any? Seeing none, call for the vote.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Han?
Yes.
Councilmember Cantu?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shirley. Hey, Shirley, real quick, that big read that happened a couple years ago, are we still doing that?
That has been Somos who initiates it, and we, as the library, always want to participate and we look forward to it. I have not heard that they've got another one coming up, and it would be nice. And
that was cool.
If they're interested in it, I will wholeheartedly support it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you again, Shirley.
Thank you.
Thank you for your staff and you for the work you do in the public library that serves the whole community. Thank you. We have item C and D. Mr. Bellis, I know Mr. Conrad, I think, is out. Do we want to move forward with this, or you have enough information on it? I know the first part of it we can do, but the second part, if there's questions, is there somebody that can?
Mr. Mayor, agreed. We should probably proceed with C in case this contract proceeds, that any conflict is declared and adjusted for by the council. D does not actually require council approval, is below the threshold. It was primarily on there for informational purposes anyway, as I had agreed with council earlier that wherever possible we would put all contracts on the agenda for their information and approval. So I would suggest that we approve C and delete D at this time.
Okay.
Under the recommendation of the manager, Mr. Mayor, move for approval.
Move to approve the modification of the
modification of C, removing D.
Okay. We have a second to that?
Yes, I'll second that.
Second. Call for vote.
Councilmember Han?
Yes.
Councilmember Cantu?
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
So we'll go to item C, Resolution 1519, waiver of immediate family member to contract with the town. Fire Chief Gonzalez.
Is there an addition item, Mr. Mayor?
Excuse me?
Is there an addition item, or are we on C?
On C?
Oh, I thought you guys had done.
We just finished that.
Oh, is that? Well, I thought we
did.
just to amend the agenda.
Well,
what
what my motion was to accept the recommendation of the manager.
Oh, okay.
And move for approval of approving items.
How did you get that, Renee? Just to make sure that we're clear on that.
I was going to ask. I'm sorry. My understanding was that you were
approving the item, but also deleting item D and approving item C.
Okay. So that was in one motion?
Yes.
That's on your second too? Okay. All right. Sorry. My confusion. Thank you. So
but you're welcome to stay, Chief.
So we'll go to item E, financial update, Marietta.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members, town manager, and youth council member. You have your report attached. This is through March 31st. Just overview of the revenues on the gross receipts tax. Our March tax distribution, which is actually January's activity, was down 11.67% over last fiscal year. The decreases were in retail trade, roughly $29,675, and in construction, $18,211. Most significant increases were in the utilities area, $13,877, and unclassified establishments at $6,347. Our year-to-date growth rate down is 0.30%, and that's using actual comparisons from last year. Overall, general fund revenues are down from this year, last time 3.2%. We do have already received April's distribution, and it was down also 2.77% based on 13-14. I did do projections in the fall, and I'm still looking at being flat based on the information that we have through the year to date. So just keep in mind our budget was prepared in a lesser amount than actuals received last year, but even with that, we're keeping flat. So going forward with this year's budget, as we already discussed, we're keeping those revenues at a flat projection also. Expenditures, we've already working with the departments, freeing up some money that they possibly may not spent for this current fiscal year to offset some of those revenues. We already have a projection on some of the personnel savings that we will have. Right now, March 31st, and they're trying to do a lot of their final purchases and getting some of those expenditures done before the end of the fiscal year. Granted, with the weather, that's when they do most of their stuff, and so we're sort of pressing, like trying to prepare the budget, trying to finish off projects, and trying to get them satisfied with all the procurement and stuff that they need to do to close out the year. Our ending balance, we still are keeping our reserve requirement along with 37 additional days reserve, which will go into next year. Capital projects, we spent a couple $100,000 on an application for Camila Merced. Project was done, but the payments are coming through now in which is March. We did some work on the new phone system, a payment of $19,000, and then a payment for the Youth and Family Center building assessment on the roof and the walls. Also, we did a couple of bids, mechanical installation for the air filtration units, the road and construction materials, and also Salazar Road extension. So some of all the processes going forward in March. You can see there on the capital projects, year-to-date spent is $2.6 million of a $33,000 budget, which is very overstated just because of the $24 million in the airport, which is going to continue for several years, and 8% of the money spent for the capital projects so far. If you turn to the second page, you can just see the revenues in general fund. We've collected year-to-date $7.9 million. That's on the 1, 2, 3, 4th column. And our expenditures is at $6.9 million, leaving with us a current balance of $3.3 million. I have other revenues on our enterprise funds. Pretty much everything is running smoothly. Still looking at the landfill revenues, are up 11%, parking meters 6%, and water sewer revenues, water is up 8% and sewer is 5%. Added a revenue comparison chart that shows just our GRT through February, accommodations and food services, and lodgers tax just for information purposes. I stand for any questions, or if you...
Counselor? Anybody? Counsel?
Marietta, you said that the two biggest dips in our GRT for February were retail, trade, and construction services?
Yes.
What was lodgers, I guess, looking like in those months?
Actually, lodgers tax was up in February for some reason.
Considerably over last year? Or
I think it was up about 7%.
It's a good snow month.
So.
Okay, so Rick, and I don't know if this is something we can do. I propose we do it sooner than later, maybe over the course of this latter summer, fall. But just hearing rumblings out there, especially from the tourists themselves, and in the direction that Taos Ski Valley is moving. I don't want to make us a pass-through town on the way to Taos Ski Valley. I think we need to supplement each other with everything that both sides have to offer. The problem is if you get them up there, you're not going to get them back down. And with our commitment to Taos Ski Valley with regards to their TID, and lending our support to the state of New Mexico and supporting that TID, I think it's important that we have some type of discussion both with Taos Ski Valley and the hotel operators here in town as to the condition a lot of the properties sit in. Because what I'm hearing is the biggest complaint is that people are looking more for that hotel chain experience. I mean, I know for me, as I travel quite a bit with work now, I look for Marriott because it's clean, it's comfortable, I know what I'm going to get. Mm-hmm. And when you come to a place like Taos and you have option A, B, C, and then if you're here on a ski weekend and there's a Marriott, I mean, chances are that place is going to book out considerably, and it's just going to entice the Ski Valley to continue to build. Again, I just don't want to see us as that pass-through town, and as they move their operations to be more inclusive of a ski and play resort, which is going to encompass the summer as well too, we're going to continue to lose. And I think it's equally dependent that we, have that discussion with our hotel chain operators or hotel operators that are here to really identify what concerns us with regards to lack of GRT. And I know the 7% was up, but we were also up in a time that there wasn't probably accommodations up at Taos Ski Valley. So as we move through this, the airport expansion, I'm really, really getting concerned as we continue to see the dip in GRT, why that exists and why that's happening. And again, just not being that pass-through town or day visit town. Because it's not fair, I think, to the residents. It's not fair to economic development and companies wanting to move here. And it's definitely not fair to the hotel owners if we're not all having the discussion as to why. So, Rick, I don't know if we can put that together and just involve the three entities, even the county if we have to. I mean, I think it's about time that we start having the discussion as to the problems that are plaguing the community, number one being roads, which is a huge issue for us, but how we can address some of the concerns. And I think, Fritz, you had mentioned an economic summit with regards to where we're at in the whole overall picture and scheme of things. I think it's probably a good time that we do start having the discussion as to how we can be more self-sufficient, or we are going to become that pass-through town. And, things are just going to get worse, especially on the GRT front. I don't like hearing double-digit dips in GRT, and then a single-digit dip, right behind it. So, Rick, if we can put something together, I'd greatly appreciate it and involve any input from the general public as well, too.
Councilman, that discussion actually already took place at the Lodgers Tax Advisory Board. It's been agreed that the mayor would send a letter out that would also be signed by Taos, which was formerly the Taos County Lodgers Association. That there's just been a slight delay because it's come to our attention that 3 of the hotels in town are in play, and there may, as of yesterday, already been contracts signed, and we wanted to wait till that deal kind of shook out.
How does that, I guess, address the issue, too? I know Witten was taking the men's homeless shelter people for a fee, I guess, during the course of the homeless shelter being opened. And several of the other hotels, and I know they're doing what they have to do to survive, becoming almost Section 8 housing, additional Section 8 housing. How does that play in? Because, the other question I have is how that impacts water resources. And it's come to my attention just within the last probably couple of weeks that Don Fernando, the water's got to run for like 10 minutes before they see hot water. And that, that's concerning too, because it's just a depletion of resources on our part. I mean, just the condition of the buildings is, I guess, what are we doing? How do we gauge those standards? How do we, ensure that we're doing our part as a governmental entity to make sure that our resources are being protected in the same fashion that, large-scale operations are tasked to do as well too?
We have been doing a systematic evaluation of each of the hotels based on complaints and using the fire code as an opportunity, since many of these complaints deal with that. So the teams included the fire department, Ovi doing his inspections, as well as the building official, and I know they've done 3. I have not had a chance to read the rest of the report, but I think they've actually completed or scheduled more than that. So hopefully by the next meeting we will have a copy of those reports for council for your review.
Okay.
But there's absolutely no question, Councilman, you are correct. Number one complaint is the condition of the hotels and the lack of reinvestment in those facilities. There is also the question that, in fact, when they give up their liquor license or food serving, do they become less accommodating? And that, in fact, if they do become substitute SROs, have they violated their licensing with the state as hotels?
How are they? I mean, if some of these guys are moving into the Section 8 arena, where does that sit compliance-wise, I guess, even with us in a multi-family dwelling? I mean, and again, Chief, I guess going back to the fire inspection with fire suppression, is that live, active, operable? I mean, how often are we doing our due diligence with regards to some of these entities?
Mr. Mayor, council member, the fire department has done 3 that I know of actively that went through the whole thing. It was Whitman, the change of ownership at the Quality Inn, and just last week we did the Kachina based on some complaints that we were getting. It was, like Mr. Bella said, an extensive walkthrough with fire staff, buildings, several different departments in the buildings, electrical and different places like that. Those reports are being made up at this time. In fact, at 3 o'clock this afternoon, they're meeting with finance and stuff as far as the billing part that you guys approved. By the end of the week, I believe, over the email that he sent Mr. Bellis, he's meeting with Julie, and they're planning all these inspections on the bigger hotels first to get them done as soon as possible, because we did find quite a bit of violations that we want addressed as soon as possible.
And again, and not to create bigger problems even for themselves. I'm sure they're trying to stay alive. Just if we can work with them. At the same time to help them get back into compliance or back up to code.
Yes.
At the same time, we can address maybe the issue of condition.
And an interesting sidebar to that, Councilman, is that as more of these hotels try to turn towards long-term housing, it can kill our tourism. In fact, I've had 2 of our larger events for this spring already call and say that people are saying, I want to buy your tickets, but I can't get a hotel room, because they're booked up with long-term rentals.
Mm-hmm.
And does that mean then people stop coming to our events? And then we're really in a downward spiral. You'll see that letter go out by Friday.
Okay.
As soon as we have those new owners' names.
Thanks, Marietta.
Oh, I feel all depressed now, just giving you a report. No, thank you, and all the concerns are, I think, on the table already, and going into the next budget cycle, being very conservative with our, no projection of 0, but just to keep us all safe, and if we get more, great, but.
Have we looked any more about engaging more with the public surplus, getting rid of some of the stuff that we have, just sitting cleaning up our facilities at the same time? Maybe dumping some of the real estate that we have out there that's a problem?
Yeah, I think we're looking at all that. Janice is trying to get some of that equipment up on the public surplus website and try to get a little bit more aggressive in doing that. And then maybe working with Public Works probably later in the summer to get some of the other stuff out of there that we can't get on public surplus.
Okay.
So.
Thanks, Marietta.
Sure.
And thank you. Councilor Gonzalez, I think, that's something that me and Rick have been talking about, about some of the motels and hotels, and we want to make sure that people want to stay in our community. They want to bed in our community and, get up in the morning, eat breakfast, have lunch here, and spend more money in our community, and not just, drive down to Pewaukee or Tesuque and spend the night there, because the motels are nicer maybe down there. We want to make sure that they're nicer here so that people want to stay here, and we're accommodating that we have the service in those facilities that people are requesting or are wanting. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Gonzalez. Do you have annual inspections or inspections of the hotels or facilities regularly, or is it just upon complaints? Or
at this point, Mr. Mayor, Council Member Cantu, at this point, since I took this position, we have made it a number 1 priority to inspect every business in the town of Taos, and we are working at. There's quite a few. Yeah. We're getting the bigger ones first. We did compile a complete list along with the help from planning and zoning and all the facilities, the hotels, motels, and bed and breakfasts, but we're concentrating on the mainstream, the ones on the main street here, the bigger ones, before we get to the bed and breakfasts. But yes, ma'am, we are doing annual inspections on every business in the town.
And does that include the fire extinguishers as well? Or is that a different
We do check for them. It's not our responsibility to chart or to do the maintenance and servicing of, outside of that. But we do, if we do see a violation of them, we give them 30 days to get them repaired or replaced, and we work with them as far as getting that stuff done. But yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
And additionally, I think, Chief, that was part of the fee structure schedule that we put out to enable you guys to hold accountability, not just go do an inspection.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Chief. Thank you, Marietta.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll go on to item F, NCRTD agreements with Chili Line Operations and Fleet Maintenance Agreement. Mr. Bellis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Because these documents are rather thick and there are some changes in here, I did pass out the hard copies to you, even though you have them on your computer, if you prefer to do it that way. Some of these changes were just done in the last 48 hours. So NCR, could you gentlemen come up, please?
I know we have Mr. Mike Kelly and Mr. Montalero and our great grants writer also from the NCRTD.
Mr. Mayor, I did want to state for the record that I know that Council is concerned about a number of areas, but most importantly that there is a smooth transition in the service and for the employees that would be affected by this. And as I had reported earlier, I'd held a meeting, I think about 6 weeks ago, when this started to formulate with all the transit workers. Only one worker has requested to stay with the town, and we are trying to accommodate that for her. The rest of the employees, again, put a list together of concerns between them that they might have had, and we followed up with a meeting at noon today, and I thank the representatives from NCRTD and Councilman Gonzalez for attending that meeting. And one of our employees is here in the audience. I think we had a couple earlier, but they might have had to go back to work. Hopefully, I think, if not all, the majority of their concerns were addressed. Most importantly, that the compensation is not just equal, but better. They pay less for the same retirement plan, and that the starting wages for the two classifications that affect most of the employees are higher than our employees are already making, and they're slated for an additional increase in July. Our target date, if we go forward with this, would be for July 1 for transition. With the physical facility, the barn, because we have to go through DCA as a municipality in the transfer of real property, and federal money was involved in the purchase of property. That will take some time, so this would involve the leasing of that facility to RTD, but there's also an agreement in here beyond the transfer for us to provide the continued maintenance of the vehicles at those facilities. And with that, I would like the gentleman from RTD, Anthony and Mike, to, I guess, if you want to hit on some of the high points here, and then Council can.
Rick, real quick, I had one question, and this just stems from our meeting. It was addressed to us that the NCRTD, I guess one of the big differentiations between the pay was how the para transfers over, number one. Number two, with the regards to the accumulation of sick time when an employee leaves our entity, they're paid out for that sick time accrued versus NCRTD, which they would not. In Section D, paragraph 4 of the contract, it says sufficient funds to cover the accumulated vacation and sick leave balances of any town transit employee. How does that work if they've accumulated 40 hours, for example, end up leaving a month after their employment, whereas they wouldn't be entitled to that pay here? Does that just go right back into the general fund or basically a sick leave fund, I guess, that the NCRTD establishes? How does that work if they're transferring over with current sick time or sick pay hours? Once they leave NCRTD, they're not entitled back to the money. How is that addressed? I mean, if I'm looking for a smooth transfer, if I'm looking as an employee to make it beneficial and worth my while, whatever I'm going with, I expect to leave with. Can you address that?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Gonzalez, prior to today's meeting, we weren't fully aware of the differences between our traditional sick leave and vacation leave program and the consolidated type of program that the town has here. And I think the fact what you're raising is an interesting question, that if in fact the town provides the resources equal to what an employee has accumulated as vacation leave and sick leave, I'm not looking for the district to gain more money than it would have had these employees been under our plan. So the fact that I now understand the difference will allow me and Rick to sit down and look at that from a different perspective, especially if the town's going to provide the coverage on that sick leave fund and what have you. So I think we can address that. I just don't want to create it here today.
And I completely understand. And, I guess for me, Rick, to create the clean break, I mean, for me, I guess it would be a separation of company, almost how you would do it, or a subsidiary where once the employee leaves Organization A to transfer to Organization B, they're closed out entirely out of Organization A. So whether that's a payout of sick time, so we're not transferring funds over to NCRTD with regards to whether or not that employee is going to stick around for a month, a year, a day, but they take what they've earned here and make a complete new transition over to NCRTD. They go through the probation period, they accrue on your schedule, and then it's fair starting point. So I don't know if that's, I'm sure we have to have the funds back for it. So.
Yeah, and we do, Councilman, and Marietta already has those figures, and it's not very substantial. They are set aside as a reserve. We're obligated to keep some funds aside for exactly these annual leaves of people. And I would prefer from a legal standpoint, and I think to leave NCRTD with a cleaner record, to do it the way you're recommending, which is we're prepared to just pay out everybody dollar for dollar every leave hour that they have coming, and they would start new with you. The only other way to be fair on that would be that we would compensate. It costs us the same amount, but we would pay that amount to NCRTD for that eventual payout, and it would be carried over hour for hour as it is now, but then once they get there, they'd be divided into the two categories afterwards. But this seems cleaner for everyone.
Anthony, did you have?
Yeah, I from my perspective, Mayor and Councilmember Gonzalez and Town Manager Ballas, I think we can collectively come to some kind of resolution on that, considering that it's your money that's being looked at being transferred, and how can we be fair to the employee, because at the same time we don't want them coming on board and then one of them has a medical situation that they need to access sick leave and they haven't accumulated enough, so now they're looking at a leave without pay situation. So I think we've got to find a balance between what we're talking about here so that we don't leave them in a position where they have no income coming in because of that, because the state program that we're all on from a short-term disability perspective doesn't kick in till 6 months of disability, if I recall correctly. So an employee has to have sufficient enough leave so they don't go without pay to sort of bridge that time period. So I think we have to look at it from a balancing standpoint and make sure that they get what's due to them and that's fair to them, but at the same time they're somewhat protected in terms of not finding themselves in a leave without pay situation as well.
So what if we did it as a transfer of PTO/vacation time, paid them out for their sick, because that's something they'd lose if they didn't use or left the organization, and at least the PTO vacation would still allow them to have that income, in the event that an emergency arises, that they transfer with something. And I guess my big concern is that if for some reason, even due to illness, they leave, they're not entitled to their sick pay.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Gonzalez, I think we're kind of have the same interest in finding a way to ensure that the employee doesn't find themselves in a situation where they're going without pay. So
okay.
How we find that balance, I think we can come up with that here and address that for you.
Okay.
And we just want to be as fair to the employees as we possibly can.
Exactly.
Anthony, did you?
Some of the changes have occurred within the last probably 48 hours, correct? I mean, that have happened in there, and I don't know how much counsel. I know for myself, I haven't had a whole lot of time. I mean, what you're hearing from me is what I've taken the 10,000-foot view to kind of just see what's happening below me. I'd ask Mr. Mayor, I know it's on the agenda today for consideration and possible approval, but I'd ask that we postpone and move it to our next meeting or hold a special meeting for it to give council time to kind of, I guess, just read through the documents and some of the proposed changes, because I, like you, have some of the same questions with how, employee pay transfers over and what that means to us and what it means to you and, more importantly, what it means to them. If council's not opposed to it, I mean, I didn't get a chance to read through the red line items, and I opened the email, Rick, but I didn't see any of the red lines. I saw final draft. So
yeah, me too.
So, Anthony,
Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Gonzalez, frankly, I just saw these myself as I was driving down and really couldn't read them until I got the hard copy here today. But I think it would be in all our best interests if we just took a little bit of time to review these and make the adjustments, and if you'd permit the staff and I to work through these and get you a revised document for your next meeting. I would request that we don't wait another month if we can avoid that, if we can get on the next meeting, because transitions do take time. They require that we put the employees through our training program, that we walk them through our personnel policies, the rules and regulations and everything when that transfer occurs. So we want to do it right, and we want to make sure the employees are trained appropriately and fully informed when that takes place. So, July 1st comes around pretty quickly. So,
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, I think we could probably continue this item to our next regularly scheduled meeting. Date certain of, 2 weeks from today? And it would give us time to kind of read through the documents, get it all hashed out, I assume, and get a finalized document.
So in the form of a motion to table this till that time specific?
Would we table or continue?
Continue? Okay.
So continue for our date. When's our next meeting, Renee?
Sorry, I don't have my calendar.
May 12th?
Yes.
Date certain to May 12th.
May 12th. And you also have a retreat on Monday. I don't know if it can be turned into a special meeting to act on it.
I think it would be better on the 12th, so we're not.
12th, so we don't
have too much
to
get to do. So that would be perfect. Would that work for you, Anthony?
Yes, it would, and it also gives us time to meet again with the employees. So whatever changes that the RTD staff and your town manager and administration here concur with, we can talk to them about it as well, because again, I want to make sure that they're fully informed and cognizant of how we're going to approach this, so they're not learning of it first at a meeting.
Okay.
The one thing I would, Mr. Mayor, Council, I would ask is that we not go past that, and if there's, at least I think based on the last time we approached this matter, there was an informal consensus to proceed and direction staff, because this makes a $200,000 difference in our budget one way or the other, and if we don't do one way, we have to cut that much, and it's pretty complicated and painful to do that.
Okay. We'll revisit it on the 12th. As long as all changes are on there, we shouldn't have any problems.
Mr. Fernandez, I'll get to you in 1 second, okay? So we have a motion. Did we have a second to that?
I'll second it.
And a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Just as part of the discussion, Anthony, I received a list of questions, and I unfortunately couldn't get to that meeting late this morning, but I'm going to guess that y'all have not had a chance to address all of those employee concerns that it looks like about it's entitled Chili Line Drivers Questions 4.1, 4.15, about 20 questions.
I would say that then we started our meeting, and Mr. Fernandez will address that, can address that as well as he was there, as well as Councilman Gonzalez. But a lot of these questions were questions that had come up previously and that we wanted the staff to hear directly from NCRTD. And we've assured the staff that the answers will be somehow put into writing to make sure that these agreements, even if it's attachments, are solidified so that they're comfortable with them. But I think there were a few, including the probation period and the seniority, that we've probably still got to work on.
Okay. All right, so we do have a motion, we do have a second. It looks like there's a little bit more work that needs to be done before this can be voted on. So call for the vote.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Hunt?
Yes.
Councilmember Cantu?
Yes.
Thank you. Anthony?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, the only thing is that the RTD board has us on their agenda for this Friday, May 1st, and I guess if I can get them to trust me, I'll ask them to approve it in concept with changes that may come forward, hopefully, and they'll do that. That way we don't have to wait till our June meeting to have it approved, but we'll see how that goes Friday.
Okay. Mr. Fernandez, did you want to address on this item?
Yes.
Thank you, Stace.
Good afternoon, Mayor Barrone, Councilman Han, Councilman Gonzalez, Councilwoman Cantu, in absentia, Councilman Peralta, Rick, Town Manager.
You might pull a mic a little closer to you. Okay. And your name, David, just so we have it recorded.
My name is David Fernandez of Taos, and among the things that I do, one that's dear to my heart is working with the town transit operation, known as the Chili Line. Back in the 1990s, I was one of the first of the crew that started working with the original Chili Line initiative, and did that a couple of years, and then took a break. But now I've been back with this for a little over 10 years, and it's just been a great and a wonderful opportunity for the people of our area here, Taos area, to have a way to get around. And let me say also at the outset that I'm glad to have been working with fine people as fellow transit operators and people who are in supervisory positions. They've all been great all the way down the line, even to the present. Miranda Quintana and French Espinosa, and we've all gotten along very well together, just like a family, so to speak, good family. And we've been loyal employees, and I'll go ahead and use the word employee, although we are the people of Taos. We are the neighbors of the people here. We eat, sleep, we work, we go to church, we vote, we do all these kind of things which citizens do. And we're proud of the excellent and loyal service that we've been providing our town here. And it was, frankly, a bit of a surprise a month or a couple of months ago to hear that a big overall change was in the works, and the proposed consolidation with the Regional Transit District. And the Regional Transit District also does wonderful work in northern New Mexico. What I know came to my mind and to some of my fellows. Well, first of all, the getting over the initial surprise and shock. In a way, some were shocked that this might be in the offing. They said, "Why is this going on? Why is this going on?" And some of the explanations that were given, did make sense. Could save the town a lot of money, for example, through the lodger's tax and things like that, as well as incorporate the town transit operation into a more holistic transit operation for northern New Mexico. And those are fine. Those are good points. What we were concerned about, and what we are still concerned about, is that to the greatest extent possible, any transition or consolidation should be, I think as Councilor Gonzalez said, as seamless as possible. In other words, ideally, our faithful, devoted, and skilled, excellent crew, by the way, two of our members just won first place in the statewide competitions over the weekend, Leo Valencia and Madeline Barney, and they'll be representing the state of New Mexico in the national competitions. So we're all good. I didn't enter. I would have probably won myself, but we're all good. We're all very, very good, is what I'm saying. And we are the people of Taos. We are people of Taos. We're very interested in what's going on. We would prefer, ideally, that the crew that we have operating, there are not many of us, probably count them on two hands here, to the greatest extent possible, based on our own seniority, based on experience and excellent driving records and so forth, that we should, and I personally recommend that we stay in place as we are here. And even though we would be transitioned or even though we might be part of the consolidation, that we continue to operate as we have been, and ideally that the only real change might be the administration overhead, but that otherwise, our routes would remain basically the same. Our seniority would be fully recognized, which the fine people from RTD assured us that would be part of the deal earlier today. The matter of probation, as Rick said, is still a kind of a sticking point maybe, because on the one hand, we're fully matured and excellent drivers on the one hand, and so the others are saying, but if we're like that here, why should we have to be on probation here again, like a double jeopardy kind of thing? That's something that can be worked on. And there's a number of other points, as Councilor Hahn has referenced as well. I would like to suggest that along with the motion that's been approved here to continue the thinking on this, that perhaps one or two of the actual transit operators might be included as part of the, an ad hoc member of the negotiating committee to make sure that the needs of the people who are employees of the transit operation here in Taos, that they in fact do get completely recognized and written in as part of the final contract. Somebody said a while ago, well, change happens. A lot of times people say, sometimes they say, change happens when something big comes. and it's true, change happens, but we also can be part of the change that comes, and to make sure that a change that comes is a good change for everybody. In other words, you don't have a bunch over there labeled as, the employees over there and like that. Everybody who's a human, who's a person, who's part of this community, who's part of this family, who's going to be affected by something like this, should be involved. And that's why I'm suggesting, very frankly, that in addition to the fine supervisory personnel like Ms. Quintana and French and so forth, that one or two of the actual operators could and should be part of the final negotiations for this. It's a big deal for Northern New Mexico, and I personally applaud you, Mayor Barrone, Mayor of the Town of Taos, and also Chair of the NCRTD. It's a big deal. It affects a lot of people, and we need to recognize the effect that it does have on the people, and the people who are going to be affected should be, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, be involved in effectuating that change. So I thank you for your time, and give it some thought.
And Mr. Fernandez, thank you. Thank you for your service there, and hopefully that. And Tony, I did hear from you that you, in your statement here, that you will be bringing this back to that group and for, ratification or for some negotiation and some of these issues that were brought up. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I indicated that we would meet again with the employees to share with them what had been changed and discussed and how we're addressing some of those issues that were brought up. So yes, we would have a meeting with them before this document is discussed with the council here. I was on the board of directors of the NCRTD when we took over we consolidated with the city of Espanola and their transit system, and then with the county. And a lot of what's in this document was guided by those documents, but those documents at the time weren't as thorough as this document is, and what have you. And there's been some lessons learned there. And so obviously we approach it with a bit caution based on what I learned as a board member and my past experiences as well. And as I shared with the employees here when we were talking about the probationary period, is I don't have access to their personnel files. I don't know what's there. I don't know what training they've undergone and what have you. And so that's why we proposed the probationary period, because we just don't know if we could get access to those, which means each employee would have to legally agree to have us have access to files that we don't have legal access to today. We might be able to make a better informed decision about what's there and whether an employee should be on probation or not when they come over to the district. So it can be worked through, but information needs to be provided as well to get there. So, we're open to discussing those, and I'll talk more with Rick about that and about some of the other suggestions we've heard here today as well.
So do you have an idea of a time for a meeting maybe next week between staff so that they can arrange it? Because some of this, they'll be out on routes so that they,
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we'll work with Mr. Ballas or whoever he assigns to work with us to arrange a time for a meeting when it doesn't interfere with operations as well. If that means we have to be here in the evening to do so, we'll do that. It means we need to bring in lunch and do it at lunch like we did today. but we didn't bring in lunch.
Say I missed lunch?
Yeah, we're willing to do that as well. So we'll make whatever effort it takes to make sure that people are well informed.
Okay. So if you didn't eat, make sure Stacy takes you somewhere.
I'll have her pay for it.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Mr. Lopez, when the 911 was taken over by the county, were those employees also put on a 30-day or 60-day probationary period?
I wasn't involved in that either at the county or the town. That was part of my coming here, but Mr. Bellis, I think, can answer that question.
Yeah, in fact, it was a 6-month probation, which is standard for the county, and the leave was paid out by the town in full before they were transferred over to the other authority.
Okay, so it sounds like we can get some good work done between now and you'll include some of the employees from there and we'll move forward. Okay.
So Dan?
Thank you.
So all these
Councilor
questions,
Cantu?
all these questions that we got will be answered in this meeting next week?
Mr. Mayor and Council Member Cantu, I think we addressed some of those today, but as Town Manager Ballas indicated, we'll put down in writing what we spoke about so that people also have it in black and white and we're not trying to recall, well, he said this or you said that. No, this is what we said and here it is.
That sounds good. Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Fernandez.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to take a 5-minute break.
We have a motion Chad made a motion. We have a second. Call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Yes. Aye.
Thank you.
Council, we have a motion to come back into session. We have a second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
So we'll move back on to let's see, other matters. Town manager's report, council workshop.
Just checking with everybody to make sure, again, everybody's aware that we are going to do a workshop next week to talk about setting some goals. We'll do a quick review of where we went with the strategic plan, maybe some corrections that staff's advising that we make on things that we don't have direct control over and we have limited resources. We'll do some goal setting going forward for the rest of the year, and I'll send the agenda out after tomorrow. Rosemary Romero, who's also doing our regional water plan update, is going to be our moderator, and I'll go over the agenda with her tomorrow. If there's anything in particular you want on there, please let us know. The downtown flower baskets, I just wanted to follow up on that, and that we are doubling the order, and I thank Steve for working diligently on getting our grower to agree to grow another 30 baskets. I think it'll really look nice. The council set aside...
Before we go ahead. Sorry.
The council set aside $50,000 for anniversary purposes of the carryover money on the LTAB. I'd like the council's permission to, much as we did with the 100 years. There are other anniversaries that I think needs to be recognized. In particular, I can't remember now, 300 or 400 years for Los Lavatos ditch, the acequia, and we have spoken to them about doing something on Ranchitos Road, honoring them, which is quite one of our more long-lasting engineering feats in North America. But I think it would really be good to intersperse the banners that we have with other banners of the different anniversaries, in addition to putting those baskets up. So I would ask that we be allowed to spend, much as we did with the 100 years, $15,000 of that $50,000 to increase the banners. And even next year, we'll have those holders up there. And then also for the increased cost of the flower baskets for this year. And I don't need a formal motion. I guess I'm just asking for consensus since council already set that money aside. It would be each of the anniversaries. So the ditch, the founding of the Taos as a Spanish settlement, the plaza in particular. I think we'd start with those. I don't know that we'd necessarily want to publicize the Gorge Bridge and maybe the Ranchos Church, but I know that it seems like everybody keeps coming forward with even more anniversaries. But if we kept it to banners just about the acequia in that area, and then I think interspersing the history of, in fact, some of our businesses along Paseo have even picked it up, that it's 300 years for the founding of the town as a Spanish settlement. So that and the plaza, I mean, we could specialize again, banners around the plaza celebrating its anniversary, and then intersperse the ones for the anniversary of the town throughout all of Paseo, Kit Carson.
Just so it doesn't get too cluttered, Rick.
I understand. And now the next item, I would ask Councilman Gonzalez to...
Before we go on there, Steve, just the flower baskets, we'll be able to, just want to make sure that, we're going to spend the money to do them. We want to make sure that we can maintain them, because I know it takes, and again, I don't have a problem going out with you and holding that water wand, but I just want to make sure if we're going to put that many baskets out, we can get them watered.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So we currently have budgeted, and the last 2 years we have successfully put up 30 baskets. Actually, scratch that, 42. So we get 30 for the plaza. There's 6 to go in the parking lot at U.S. Bank, and another 6 to go around Juan Largo and the Terracina Lane area. So in talking with Mr. Bellis and some concerned citizens, we decided to get 30 more baskets that'll go on Bent Street, up Kit Carson Road, and along the back end of Placitas around the plaza.
You said Kit Carson?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So in order to do that, Valerie in the back cranked out a spreadsheet of the costs. We broke down what it costs to do this. And so we provided that to Mr. Bellis, and it was agreed that the town employees cost more than some temps would, so we're going to hire 2 temps from the months of June through October who will be charged with taking care of all 30 plus 42, 72 of them. So we'll provide them with a truck, we'll train them, and they have to be watered 7 days a week. It takes a lot of water, they have to be fertilized, the truck has to be maintained, the tank has to be filled up. We have no irrigation, so it's all by hand. But with the additional money and the additional help, I think we can do it.
Okay.
And make them look nice. That's important too.
Where are you going to put them on Kit Carson and Paseo Norte? Is that what you said?
No, on Bent Street and on Kit Carson Road, there are light poles that already have the hangers are on them, and as well as Placitas. They're already up there. The first year, I think the town tried to do this was 3 or 4 years ago before I arrived, and they got the wrong kind of baskets, and they hung up too many, and they just overextended everything, and they kind of turned out looking pretty bad. So the improvements are that we have hybrid plants that are genetically engineered for high altitude. We get the same ones that Santa Fe gets for its plaza, and they come from a nursery in Bayfield. They don't have to be deadheaded. They're beautiful plants if you saw those on the plaza last year. So we're just going to get the same amount, and we got the nursery to agree to grow 30 more for us. They were pretty much done with their planting, but we talked real nice to them, and they agreed to plant some more. So with the right amount of, I think we figured out the watering and how much it takes to do it, and so I think we can do it. I think it'll turn out nice.
I just have another question. Is there any place available in Albuquerque we might be able to get these similar plants to keep the money in New Mexico?
What we'd like to do is keep the money locally. There's a grower that the mayor pointed us to, and he grows hanging baskets for Whole Foods and sells his whole stock to them. But what we're going to do this year is provide him one of the baskets. He's going to look at the plant material that's in it and see if he can copy it, and if it makes sense for him to try to grow them for us. We'll have to do the procurement. But we went with we didn't send to any growers in Albuquerque. We did some local folks here, and to the folks that the Santa Fe City uses for their sources from their plants, based on a recommendation from Los Jardineros. And their plants are spectacular, and they're within our budget. So we'll go with them this year with the hope that the local folks out of Arroyo Hondo will be able to try to copy them, and maybe we can, if they meet procurement, if they bid lowest next year, we can go with them.
Yeah, because those deadheads, they're time consuming.
Yes, it's killer.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
And we want to try to keep as much business local, and that's why it's important that we did that. It was a short time. They couldn't get them growing this year because it was too late in the year.
And they sold all their stock to Whole Foods, but we're going to try to get them to look into growing them for us.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Sorry about that, Rick. I just wanted to make sure we put all this stuff up and we have a way to maintain it. Go ahead.
Normally, and Mayor, you're familiar with this because when the Lionel Coalition of Communities was originally formed, you were representing the county. The amount we pay as a membership fee or our contribution is based on our population, which is 3,500, and this year the coalition is urging the local governments to voluntarily raise that to 10,000, and I know that Councilman Gonzalez is our representative on there, and I just wanted to get some input.
Rick, absolutely not. I think going on the basis of it being voluntarily implemented, I think was wrong of the coalition anyway, and that's partly coming from the ED. I know Los Alamos County is showing concern because of the fact that Bechtel's contract, which is a for-profit, to get a large windfall of GRT from the entity, is really, in essence, on the chopping block because of the issues that they've had at the waste isolation plant, the fines and fees that the state of New Mexico has sent back to the contractor, sent back to Los Alamos National Security. So being that Los Alamos County is the largest contributor to our board of directors, to the regional coalition, they contribute about $175,000 a year compared to our $3,500, but they also hold the largest majority of employees within Los Alamos County. So I don't look at it as a contribution. I look at it as paying their fair share to what we have. Every year our employment numbers drop, obviously for reasons that are beyond us, that, Lands, Bechtel, Department of Energy infuse $8 million worth of funding to the Los Alamos schools every single year, and we get 30 backpacks. So for me, it's saying I can't pay more into an organization, and I won't do it. I won't pay more into an organization that benefits my constituency to a certain extent, but I won't do it at the same time to the detriment of the community, which I think $10,000 is a bit much based on the amount of employees that we have. So I can take that back to my board, state my position, but I would definitely not ask our staff or even yourself to even consider looking at an amount above the $3,500 that we currently pay, which I think is fair. I think if our employment numbers were to rise, or we'd see bigger contribution out of what Lionel represents within northern New Mexico, then by all means I'd say, yeah, it's a pay-to-play scenario where it actively engages us at the table. But at the same point, I just don't think the benefit is great enough to justify paying any more than what we currently pay. So thanks for bringing it. I had heard that they were asking on a voluntary basis because other communities are having problems paying their rates. For example, Espanola, City of Espanola, their contribution rate is $10,000 based on the number of employees that they have. They pay $3,500 like we did this year, and a lot of it's just everybody's in the same financial crunch that we are. So I'll continue to stick to the $3,500 based on where we've been, but won't go above that amount. So thanks, Rick.
And thank you, Councilor Gonzalez, because when we set that up, I think when I was new at the county, and they were trying to figure out a way, what should be our contribution, and that's what we came up with is, the percentage of employees, and so thank you for that. So,
Mr. Mayor, the next item, D, scheduling of the local community service block grant presentations. Belinda and I just felt that before we go out again to advertise for these grants, it would be good for the council to actually see what the community gets for its money. So we will start scheduling with the next meeting 2 to 3 of those groups to come in to briefly talk about what they did with the project money to return it to the community. The E, report on event funding. Council had given direction to staff that within the guidelines of at least these earliest events that we could go ahead with the allocations so that we could get those contracts going, and the recommendations came back for $15,000 for marketing for Solar Fest and $5,000 for events. And when I say marketing, that the difference there being that comes out of the lodger's tax versus the general fund amount. Mother's Day was $15,000 in event money out of general fund, in that they cover almost all of their marketing costs. The Lilac Festival was a recommendation for $5,000 in marketing, which was what they requested. And the one I would want to add on that, because of time considerations and having met with them, was the Fiestas Committee. We funded them $15,000 last year, and I would like to continue that with the understanding with them that we will be doing advertising in regards to each of the months of the summer. We take out a full-page ad and advertise the major events that are going on within the town of Taos. And we'll also be procuring the tent and chairs and tables again, which seemed to work out very well last year in front of the Old County Courthouse so that people could eat there. And we're providing the usual services in support of that as well. And that's pretty much my report, unless council has any questions at this point.
None. Okay. Matters from the mayor. I don't have any. Think we're just working hard. We have Marietta and staff are busting it to really try to get our budget prepared, and our department heads are really doing a good job in trying to cut back. So we'll move forward there. Mr. Rael, I noticed you sitting in the audience most of the time. Did you have something that you needed to?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'm just, the reason I'm here in this meeting mostly is because I was of the understanding the last time we met that under the litigation matters, the spring ditch is going to come up for discussion. Am I right or am I wrong?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Rael, there is a matter listed in executive session under pending litigation, and that's be the last matter on the agenda, but that's an executive session which is held outside the public purview.
Yes, I understand that, but on our last mediation meeting, a question was asked from us whether this matter was going to be addressed. I understand that, it's an executive session, but it was my understanding from that last meeting is that this would be addressed today. To answer your question, Mr. Mayor, that's why I'm here.
Thank you. We'll get there.
I'll speak with Mr. Ryan.
Yeah, okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, real quick, with regards to that, Floyd, I know we had discussed in the past putting items on executive session, at least not really pertaining what they are, but I think Stephen had asked that we at least put the description on there, because I was, I didn't know what we were having in executive either. So it's kind of hard to prepare what you're going into or what you're going for if you don't have at least some knowledge of knowing what it is, because I can't ask the questions before if I don't have the information set before me. So just if we can get it on that general. A lot of times when I get the agenda, I just look at the the overall agenda, what its content is, and if I have questions, then I'll contact Rick or the mayor. So future, if we can just put the item what it is.
Thank you, Councilor. Matters from council. Councilman Han.
Right. No landfill or IGC last month. They'll crank up again this coming month. No health study last month. It'll crank up. Nominating committee for Holy Cross Hospital pending board applicants will be a marathon session all day this Friday the 1st from 8 to 6. An important meeting is happening Wednesday, and that's the Regional Water Planning Board, and we've broken up into committees. One of those committees is the Acequia Subcommittee. That's happening here in the Taos Senior Room Wednesday from 1 to 3 with Rosemary facilitating that if you've got the time and the inclination. And that's it. Thanks.
That's tomorrow, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Tomorrow.
Wednesday. I'm thinking next week.
Yeah, I know.
No, it's tomorrow.
There's so much going on right now. Councilman Gonzalez, did you have anything?
I don't have anything, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Cantu?
Yeah, a couple of things. There's a meeting tomorrow night about merchants. Please put that on your calendar.
Mm-hmm.
And Thursday, there's two meetings. There's actually one in the morning. It's more of a budget and organizational meeting for Cesar Chavez, but also the yard sale that I've been proposing to the council as a town-sponsored event. That's at 11 o'clock on Thursday morning. But there's also one for the ad hoc volunteer committee in the El Tauseño room right next door here at 6:30 in the evening. And then I wanted, can you pass these down, please? So
This is the first I've heard of them, Councilor.
I've spoken with Rick and some of the other people that I'm needing advice from. But this is really concerning to me, and this has to do with the RFP town proposal request for event marketing. It's 34 pages. I've been going through it, and I really don't want my name on this document at this point. It's so complicated and so unuser-friendly, and this one here I'm showing you as a sample. It's user-friendly, very simple, very basic. I think, you'll look at it and you probably agree, but this one's long, it's redundant, there's a lot of cut and paste. I think it's so long that we would need a workshop for both council and applicants. And it's scary, because people with viable projects are going to be scared away by this. And I just, thought simplifying it is the way to go. And that's pretty much what I had to say as far as council matters.
Okay. I think there's something we'll have to consider for next year, because I think it's already gone out for this year, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So we have to, something that we'll have to consider and look at for next year. We'll start looking at it since now, because it takes time to put things in place, so we can start doing that.
Well, if they could do that soon, to get the ball started, because the amount of time it takes to get the RFPs done is way too long. So, and the deadline comes up like that once it's out. So, I think it's really important.
Thank you, Councillor. Anything else? If not, we have a motion to go into executive session under 1015-1H7. We have a motion and a second.
We did.
I'll call for the vote.
Councilmember Han?
Yes.
Councilmember Cantu?
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a motion to come back into out of executive session into regular session.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
We have a motion to have a second. Call for the vote.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we approve.
Wait, we're doing the vote first. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we did.
Councilmember Cantu?
Oh, I didn't do it.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Hahn?
Sure.
We have a report from Mr. Lopez on what happened in executive session.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, subject to or in accordance with New Mexico statutes 10-15-187, we met in executive session to discuss a matter of pending litigation. No other matters were discussed in executive session, and no action was taken.
We have a motion to accept the town attorney's report.
So move.
We have a second.
Second.
Call for the vote.
Councilmember Cantu?
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Hahn?
Yes. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we approve the purchase of water rights from the Spring Ditch, subject to the terms of the agreement that we've worked out just last week and discussed yet again in executive session, with and subject to the approval of the Parciantes.
We have a motion. We have a.
If I could add in there, subject to the approval of the Parciantes, but also that the town receive a standard release from all such claims and further causes in action. If it's okay with your motion to add.
Any advice on that, Councillor?
I agree with that.
Then, yes, that's fine.
Second. A motion and a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Cantu?
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Hahn?
Yes.
I think this is all business we had today. Thank you. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Rick.